It was the land of missed opportunities for the Florida Panthers on Thursday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. On today's edition of the show, we are going to discuss the Florida Panthers having a big jump to their game against the Penguins despite being shorthanded, but special teams cost the Panthers in this one. We're going to discuss this and more on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, December 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And don't forget to subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. So, Cats fans, another L in the book. Far too often than we've wanted to see this season for the Panthers. And you think of the circumstances with the Panthers just coming into this game. I mean, we knew that Chris Tierney and Colin White were going to miss this game more than likely, even though Gudas was a full participant in practice on Wednesday. Still a little bit to come back from his concussion. Patrick Hornquist not eligible to come back until December 29th. But even with Carter Verhaeghe back in the lineup after a non-COVID illness, Matthew Tkachuk was missing from this one with a non-COVID illness himself. So the bug has been spreading around the Panthers locker room, and Lundell missing another game. But even coming to this game, I had a really bad feeling about facing off against a Pittsburgh Penguins team that had won 6 straight, and the Panthers still gave themselves a chance to win. Was really jumping on the Penguins early. Despite the Penguins getting the first 2 shots on goal, the Panthers were just firing on all cylinders. I mean, the Barkov line was, as you saw, if you watch the game, you see that they with the Panthers having the last change, they were always matched up against the Crosby line, Bennett, them two with the Malkin line as well, and it was the start of a also big night for Tristan Jarry as well, and the Panthers getting off to a lead early. They've won 12 games this season when they're the ones to score early in the game, and and the Stahl brothers. We were talking about how up and down the Stahl brothers have been. I mean, Mark Stahl closed the gap, which caused the Bennett line to go on a rush at 2. And Montour jumping up into play. Montour had a great night as well. And Montour connecting on that pass to Eric Stahl. And then as Eric Stahl's falling, bounces it off the post, and then Ryan Lomberg's there to clean it up. I'm like, okay, 4th line scoring for the Panthers. So, and against a bottom 6, that's great defensively, according to their numbers as far as goals against per 60. So that was a chance for the Panthers. Like, okay, you got up to this lead. You usually win games when you have the lead, and just for the Panthers, I mean, there was chances after chance, and what really cost the Panthers the game was not only just special teams, but and we'll get more into that in segment number 2. But just the opportunity for the Panthers to not extend their lead and create more breathing room for themselves. I mean, Nick Cousins on a deflected shot from Marcus Pettersson, takes on a rush by himself, and then Jarry makes a save, and then Jarry was standing on his head most of the night. And you knew you had to get those type of goals to beat a Penguins team that's been on such a run. And Heponiemi, oh my goodness, recalled from Charlotte. Him and Denisenko very impressed by their games. I mean, Alexei Heponiemi was creating rush chances. Him and Montour created a chance, and Grigory Denisenko, he was had 2 hits, and he was learning how to spin away from his opponent so that there wasn't a takeaway. And for his size as well, delivering just big hits for Denisenko. And also another missed opportunity, Sam Reinhart left all alone in the slot and then misses the net. I mean, that despite the Florida Panthers still dominating 5-on-5, more shots on goal throughout the game. So many opportunities that they missed the net. I mean, that Barkov, Rhino line, and Verhaeghe, they had the same amount of shots as their opponents on goal with those lines together at 5-on-5. But their Corsi 4 said 15-7. So a lot of their shots were missing the net. Like so many swings and misses as well. Gus Forsling had a shot that broke his stick and then leading to a rush for the Pittsburgh Penguins as well. But he was strong early. He had a poke check on Jan Ruda that created a penalty as well. And then even though the Pittsburgh Penguins scored on the power play, shorthanded on the 2-on-1 by Rust and Chris Letang, which Aaron Ekblad was a little bit too low in the zone, which caused that 2-on-1 in the first place. And Bobrovsky overcommitted to his right, and Letang beat him to his left when Rust distributed to Letang. But just silly mistakes. Silly mistakes. And more missed opportunities. Eetu Luostarinen catches the Penguins on a line change and unable to convert. And we spoke about matching up against the Pittsburgh Penguins top line. I mean, the line of Crosby, Gensel, and Rickard Rakell, 15 of their 39 shots came from that line. So you knew you had to do something about that line. And once again, converting on the power play, which the Pittsburgh Penguins went 2 for 3 on. I mean, we spoke about it with Hunter Hodes about the Pittsburgh power play just firing on all cylinders, and the fact that they get to rest Crosby and Malkin on the PK, and the bottom 6 guys taking the chances on the PK, allowing them to rest. And the second goal, I thought it was kicked in, honestly. Malkin from the top of the blue line, and I saw a kicking motion, and Paul Maurice spoke after the game how that was a automatically reviewed from the league, and they didn't see that it was a kicking motion, which I'm a little annoyed at, not gonna lie. But it's also silly mistakes before that. Carter Verhaeghe had an offensive zone penalty that caused that power play for the Pittsburgh Penguins and that was at the time to get them up 2-1 for the Pens. And once again, missed opportunities for the Cats. And just and we spoke about how 5-on-5 the Panthers lead, giving their opportunities, but then Tristan Jarry, just you gotta make Tristan Jarry more uncomfortable down in the low slot. I mean, there's a time where he was also down on the ground and on the ice, and the Panthers the Pittsburgh Penguins also closed in on not allowing the Panthers to get a second chance too. So those are the opportunities that you need to really create some separation in the game as well. Even though Matthew Tkachuk wasn't playing, Eric Staal had a backdoor pass to Nick Cousins, and then he eventually gets cross-checked by Jan Ruda, which we're very familiar with Jan Ruda playing with the Tampa Bay Lightning a few years ago. But man, he didn't have himself a great game, constantly beat, and the Panthers were frustrating him as well. And then that third period, just when you're down and you had a whole bunch of pep to your step and then getting outshot 17-5 in the third period. That third period by the Pittsburgh Penguins looked like the third period that the Panthers had against the Columbus Blue Jackets on Tuesday. And just being able to lock it down. And then even though you got another power play opportunity, the role players, Teddy Bluger and Brock McGinn, another shorthanded chance on Sergei Bobrovsky, and you look at Sergei Bobrovsky's save percentage in this one. I mean, you see 4 goals for the Penguins, but look at this, 35 of 38 total. That's a 921 save percentage for the game. And single game save percentage isn't the be all end all, but Bobrovsky on that third period just allowed the Panthers to still have a chance to at least tie the game. And just once it got 3-1, which Evgeny Malkin got hurt on the play, which he deflected the puck in. It was just going to be hard to come back from when all of those goals were on special teams. But credit to Carter Verhaeghe on that Sam Reinhart goal. He was letting the play develop, knew he had space to gain the zone, and then the backhand pass to Sam Reinhart to one-time it. And Jacob Winans in our chat spoke about how that was a false hope goal for the Cats there. And Rhino on that empty net goal, maybe he was boarded on that one, but I thought that there should have been a call there. And Brandon Montour, we spoke about how he was jumping in on the rush. He had a opportunity with Alexei Heponiemi logging 28 minutes and 34 seconds tonight. And Paul Maurice, with the injuries and everything going on, had to shorten his bench as well. By the time the third period came, the Panthers were they looked outworked. They looked tired. They looked like they exerted all their energy in the first 40 minutes. And that's just frustrating, especially when you put so many shots on Tristan Jarry early and he's just standing on his head. I mean, Tristan Jarry had a lot of criticism in the 2021 playoffs against the New York Islanders and could have had his opportunity again last year against the Rangers, but then gets hurt in the series, starts game 7 after missing most of that series, and then doesn't get an opportunity to redeem himself. But looks like this is an opportunity for him to redeem himself on the season. And even when the Panthers were trying to get a last chance to tie the game, I mean, they couldn't even get out of their own zone in that third period. Mahura turns it over to Sidney Crosby, and then he gets a chance on Bob as well. Just that top line for Pittsburgh, just great. And the three guys do it again: Letang, Crosby, Malkin, as they've been doing it for the last decade and a half, and just overall frustrating. Let's go over the 5-on-5 numbers right before we go to our first ad break. Even with that dominant third period by the Penguins, 50-47 Corsi 4, and shots on goal for the Panthers 31-30. So it was really the special teams that lost this for the Florida Panthers in this one. But in segment number 2, we're going to go back to our conversation with Hunter Hodes, the host of Locked On Penguins, and talk about that versus what happened in tonight's game. And maybe ask if there are bigger issues at hand for the Florida Panthers. But first, we're going to send you a little bit of a message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And it can happen so easily. You're out with a few friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. What are the odds that you get pulled over? Even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, your job, total your car, or you could kill somebody. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or someone else's forever. Play it safe and plan ahead and get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over. Second segment on this Friday, December 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. As you can tell, there's no Nick Fairbanks here tonight on today's show. Our schedules just couldn't fit with this game, with me working so early on Friday morning, him working late at night on Thursday. So our schedules were always going to conflict on a day like today. So hope to have Nick back next week, we will be previewing at next week the game against the New York Islanders. It'll be a road game at UBS Arena, if I have that correct. But let's go back to the keys of the game, what we spoke about with Hunter Hodes. The Penguins fourth on the PK this season, and let's look at the amount of shorthanded chances that I saw. Multiple chances. The Penguins had 3 shots on goal shorthanded, and with the Panthers with 6 total minutes of time on ice on the power play, the multiple times that we saw the Panthers just missing the net too. 3 of their 6 shot attempts reached the net. One of them was blocked. So, and just for the Pittsburgh Penguins as well, a hot power play. The Pittsburgh Penguins power play versus the Panthers PK unit, 5 shots on goal to Panthers 0. And it was quick. Especially the Malkin goal. Let me see how many seconds that was between penalty and goal, between Malkin's goal that got him hurt. I believe it was not only it wasn't even 30 seconds. I believe that Malkin scored. It was at 8:03 in the third period, and the penalty that got the Panthers shorthanded was at 7:51. So not even 12 seconds of a difference that the Pittsburgh Penguins were just moving the puck around and just creating a shot and throwing it on the net. And consistently creating traffic in front as well. And the Panthers, 3 opportunities still. Jan Ruda taking the most of them, and still the Pittsburgh Penguins were closing in their gaps. Active sticks. I mean, even in that first period, you saw Alexander Barkov being so active on that penalty kill at the top of the blue line, and then once the Pittsburgh Penguins got it into the bumper, you see Alexander Barkov going for a back check as well, and then the Panthers were able to clear the zone. That was the penalty where Eric Stahl knocked off the helmet of Chris Letang. And then just the last 2 were just once again, I thought it was kicked in by Gensel, but the league thought otherwise on that. But just it feels like such a wasted performance by so many many players on a night like Thursday. Bobrovsky, the Stalls, even and Aaron Ekblad with with another pretty poor performance as well. We spoke about that first goal, the shorthanded goal, and being even when Reinhart was hit from behind on that empty net goal, Aaron Ekblad was unable to keep it in the zone, which allowed Gensel to get the empty netter. And just what is this team's identity? Because it's always something new, where you get your goal. I mean, you got your goals even strength, but the opportunity to go for the kill and not convert, it's just that's just the more frustrating part of it all. And crazy to think that with all the players that could be scheduled to come back. I mean, Anthony Duclair was on the ice for the Panthers for the first time this season as far as morning skate. Well, prior to morning skate. And he's starting to skate a little bit. And even with cap room for Hornqvist's LTIR status, you're still shorthanded. But even then, that's not an excuse. The Panthers gave themselves a chance on a night like tonight or Thursday night. You guys will be listening to this on Friday. But the call-ups, even though some of them got hurt, and Alexei Heponiemi stepping up, a wasted performance by him. And just and Barkov too. I mean, I want to see how many. I saw 63% for Alexander Barkov when it came to his face-offs today. But let me see how many he actually took, because man, I felt like he was just in the circle literally every single time tonight. So Barkov took 27 faceoffs and won 17 of them. Mostly facing up, mostly matching with the Crosby line. And chances to cycle the puck around, but just so many swings and misses too. It wasn't just Tristan Jarry just being incredible. That Nick Cousins one, that one hurt. That one was the one that really hurt on the Panther for the Panthers, because that really could have been 2-0 at the time. And you just gotta hold the fort. You just gotta and the effort wasn't bad in the first 40. And it wasn't for lack of effort in the third. Just Pittsburgh was just they made the adjustments that they needed to. They knew that they could just chip it up, and let me also mention this of Aaron Ekblad. I mean, the puck over glass. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about that. I have that written down. I just looked down and I'm like, oh, let me talk about that. Just irresponsible a little bit for Aaron Ekblad, and that's putting it very, very nicely. Actually, the goal that Malkin scored was actually on the Ekblad delay of game, not the Carter Verhaeghe offensive zone penalty. But Aaron Ekblad has so many chances for a few open teammates to both wings. And I know you're trying to clear the zone, possibly get a change, but but just a big mental error from that as well. And just that was the goal. That was once again the straw that broke the camel's back on that one. And just his I hate to say it, but like his game really has regressed this season. And you got to wonder if he's a shell of his former self. And like we spoke about on Tuesday's, Wednesday, and Thursday's show, it wasn't going to be sunshine and rainbows for the Panthers after that win against Columbus. You beat a team you were supposed to. So this is a contending team in the Penguins. And you had your chances, even with all the injuries. You had your chances. And I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, they could have won if Tkachuk was playing. I mean, they've even lost games with Tkachuk playing, and it's like, oh, but if they would have won with this person playing. And how many times are we going to keep saying that? This team's just got to find ways to win games and try to find an identity, because honestly, I don't know what the Panthers' identity is. I really don't. When they score on 5-on-5, then their power play is an issue. When they score on the power play, then they have a whole bunch of defensive breakdowns, and their goaltending is awful. But since last Thursday, the goaltending hasn't been that bad. It's always something new. Always something new with this team. In a third and final segment, we're going to look ahead. And before we transition there, just looking ahead just looks you're just shaking your head, and you're just like thinking, could this get worse for the games that the Panthers have ahead? And we're just going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Friday, December 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And like I said, it doesn't get easier. On Saturday night, the Florida Panthers will be going up against the New Jersey Devils on the road, back at the scene of the crime that they had one of their comeback wins last season at the Rock, the Prudential Center. But this is a way different New Jersey Devils team. But the New Jersey Devils have lost 4 in a row after their hot start. You hear Fire Lindy Ruff chants after the first game of the season. But man, and if you watched the first round series last year, you remember this name, Vitek Vanacek. Played only 5 periods for the Washington Capitals against the Panthers in the first round series. Ilya Samsonov comes in the third period when the Panthers were up 5-1 in game 2. He starts the rest of the way. And who would have thought that his career would have turned around going to New Jersey? And Mackenzie Blackwood was the projected starter for the Devils, And it looks like that Vitek Vanacek has taken the reins. And I mean, just looking at this Devils team, I mean, Jack Hughes, #1 overall pick, and Nico Hischier, another #1 overall pick. Those guys are leading the way for the Devils. 16 goals and 13 goals respectively between the two. Jesper Bratt self signing a deal, and he had 10 goals on the year. Dawson Mercer, another homegrown player, and this is with their #2 overall pick, Simon Nemec, who's not even with the team yet. And a young up-and-coming team. A lot of people like their analytics even last season, but the story was that they couldn't defend and they couldn't stop. They couldn't get quality goaltending, but now they have it. I mean, sure, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing that the Panthers are facing a team that's lost 4 in a row. You could think about it in a few ways. You could think of it as the New Jersey Devils are probably going to be motivated to end their skid and fire it off against the Panthers. Or this could be more of what the New Jersey Devils are in these last 4 games after their hot start, despite still leading the division. But this could also be a chance for the Panthers to continue their losing streak, to pile it on for the Devils. I mean, we didn't even mention Spencer Knight's name. He was to go to be the backup, at least for the Panthers on Thursday. Do we see him between the pipes? Sergei Bobrovsky has had a big workload over the last week, including the last game of the Western Canadian trip, where he came in for Spencer Knight. And they'll be facing twice in a matter of a week, which the Devils on that Tuesday and Wednesday will have a back-to-back. So could we see Akira Smid next Wednesday, or Vitek Vanacek in both of them? I mean, these are the losses that the New Jersey Devils have had in their 4-game losing streak. The New York Islanders, where they gave up 6 goals. Against the New York Rangers, where they blew a 3-1 lead. Lost 4-1 against the Dallas Stars, and lost a low-scoring game against the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, that was actually tonight's game, where they put 49 shots on goal, and they only got 1 goal. Carter Hart, wow. We saw a bit of Carter Hart this season, what damage he can do. And of course, the Panthers will be facing Andrew Brunette for the first time. And what a difference he's made since he's come around. And now I know the fan base a lot of people are thinking, oh, they should have kept Bruno. Look what he's doing now in New Jersey versus Paul Maurice here. I mean, there's also roster turnover too for the Panthers. So there's no guarantee that Andrew Brunette would have had the success last year. This year, there's no guarantee. But it doesn't help that the New Jersey Devils got off to the start that they did. And their schedule isn't easy coming up neither, because they face Boston twice, the best team in the NHL, Carolina, and Florida. So something to look for in this Eastern Conference race, because if you look at Tankathon, with the Panthers having the toughest schedule remaining in the NHL, a lot of the toughest remaining schedules are Eastern Conference teams. Just goes to show the quality of play that the Eastern Conference has. And if the Panthers find a way to pull out of this, then we'll get a better sense of whether Paul Maurice can put this team in position to make a run. But we haven't seen that run yet. That's the thing. We haven't seen that run. The Locked On power rankings came out on Thursday. They come out every Thursday. I don't really talk about them all that much on the show. And Panthers are ranked 5th in the Atlantic Division as the 5th best team power rankings wise. And honestly, I'm just thinking, okay, you want to go up? Win a few games in a row without dropping. That's how you get back up. But more importantly, I want the Panthers to just win because I just want them to be back in the wild card race. Let's stop looking at the wild card race. I don't even know how many points out they are. If they win 2 in a row, then I'll look at it again. But just lack of consistency. And once again, on a night like Thursday, they couldn't separate themselves when they needed. And separating themselves, even with great special teams played by the Penguins, you could have at least gotten a point, maybe. There's no guarantee. And I hate talking about loser points, but you finish on a few of those, you don't come out of a night like tonight with 0, even being shorthanded. And then you could feel a little better because the first 40 minutes were just, the Panthers were just a lot of activity for them. But just that third period, man, Mike Sullivan gets a lot of credit. The Crosby, Raquel Gensel line, a lot of credit as well. Again, 15 of the 39 shots came from that line. Just, you had your chances. You really did. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. On Monday, we will be recapping the road game between the Florida Panthers and the New Jersey Devils and any news that will come with the Panthers. Who knows? There could be another injury. Who knows? There could be a player coming back. There's always something noteworthy to talk about this team. Nothing short of topics, that's for sure. So in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to all the shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today gives you a 20-minute or less podcast on the entirety of the sports scene with exclusive interviews and the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So Armando Velez signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Where's your team? Every day.